Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob Sadler, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to MotorCities on the Road, number 25. Today, we're going to be featuring a brand new exhibit opening up at the Automotive Hall of Fame called Achievement: African Americans and Their Accomplishments in Automotive. Apologize for the technical difficulties I'm having. Trying to get this broadcast onto Facebook Live and running into some technical issues. So bear with me for just a moment. Again, welcoming you to MotorCities on the Road number 25. My name is Bob Sadler. I'm Communications Manager of MotorCities National Heritage Area. And today we're focusing on a brand new exhibit opening at the Automotive Hall of Fame called Achievement: African Americans' Accomplishments and Contributions in Automotive. We're going to be talking in just a moment to Sarah Cook, President of the Automotive Hall of Fame. But first, for those of you that are new to MotorCities, I want to just go through a few quick slides to tell you a little bit about MotorCities and our mission and how we achieve it. First of all, I'd like to thank our 2023 sponsors, the UAW International Union and Don Nicholson Enterprises. MotorCities was established in 1998, so this year we are marking our 25th anniversary. We're a private nonprofit corporation, and we're an affiliate of the National Park Service. And as of the passage of the National Heritage Area Act, one of the final bills passed by the most recently departed Congress, we are one of 62 national heritage areas around the country. We are dedicated to preserving, interpreting, and promoting our region's rich automotive and labor heritage and the related economic development, and we do that while enabling, supporting, and respecting our area's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And on the bottom of this slide, you can see our founding partners, which include the Big Three Automotive, the United Auto Workers, as well as, of course, the National Park Service. We cover 16 different counties in the lower peninsula of Michigan. So it's not just Detroit, the Motor City, it is truly MotorCities, including Flint, north up to Saginaw, the capital area around Lansing, and all the way west out to Kalamazoo, where they made yellow cabs. And of course, Kalamazoo County is the home of our western gateway, the Gilmore Car Museum in Hickory Corners. You may have seen one of 14 of our wonderful highway signs along interstates throughout our national heritage area. There's 14 of them now, a 15th waiting to be installed, and the hope is that we'll be able to double the number of signs welcoming people to our national heritage area. These signs give us a great deal of visibility and have led to significant increases in our website traffic and social media. Among the newest items that we can tell you, the newest developments at MotorCities, we have moved. We spent 14 plus years at the RenCen in downtown Detroit. We have recently moved to a co-working space in the new center area called Chroma Detroit. That's a picture of it there. And also in 2022, we announced our long-awaited Junior Ranger program, which is patterned after many Junior Ranger programs you might find at the national parks. And if you visit the Junior Ranger portion of our website, your kids or grandkids can learn a great deal about our auto heritage here and they can get their own badge saying that they are a Junior Ranger. There are many ways to find us on the web at MotorCities.org. Our very robust social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where we will actually post the video from this program. So if you miss portions of it, or if you want to recommend this program to a friend, you can go to our YouTube page and you can check out this program as well as all of our previous 24 Motor Cities on the Road programs. Again, if you like what you see and hear and you'd like to support us by becoming a member, you can go to motorcities.org/membership. It's very easy to join, and there are a number of benefits attached to membership in Motor Cities, including admission and museum store discounts for a number of our traction partners. Or if you just wish to support us, there's a way to donate at any time via our partners at Network for Good at motorcities.org/support. It's my pleasure now to introduce today's primary speaker. She is Sarah Cook. She is president of the Automotive Hall of Fame, and she has been in that position since 2018. Additionally, in 2017, she was part of a two-person team that launched Pathway X, a social enterprise project that required building a multi-organizational consortium dedicated to the vision of driving career awareness and exploration in sectors facing skilled workforce gaps. Previously, Cook spent 4 years at the Michigan Science Center in Detroit in fundraising and development, culminating in the position of Director of Institutional Giving. Her early career was spent in applied physics research and as a laboratory methods specialist, so she's got a very diverse background. She also serves as secretary of the Hamtramck Historical Museum Board of Directors, and she's an education advisory committee member of the Downtown Boxing Gym, and she served as a content advisor to Pathway X, the Michigan Construction Career Days, and the Construction Science Expo. It's my pleasure to introduce Sarah Cook from the Automotive Hall of Fame for a walkthrough of this great new exhibit.
Hi. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Motor Cities. We thought today it would be fun to walk you through a new exhibit versus give you a PowerPoint presentation on it. So I'm really happy to welcome you all here today. We are here live at the Automotive Hall of Fame. We are on an iPhone walking around the space, so please give a hand raise or a comment if you can't hear any of us, and be sure to move closer to the microphone. So for those of you who might not know where the Automotive Hall of Fame is, we're in Dearborn, Michigan on the campus of the Henry Ford, right next to the Ford Motor Company engineering building. We are our own 501c3 nonprofit, and we are a separate institution. You're also going to hear a little bit of background ambient noise because we are doing construction live right now. So you're going to get a sneak peek at the exhibit that Bob talked about. For those of you that might not be as familiar with the Automotive Hall of Fame, we were founded in 1939 in New York. We didn't have formal offices. We were an organization focused on awarding individuals that have made contributions to the automotive industry. We did move to a purpose-built building in Northwood University in 1972, just right after we started induction in 1967. We do have 5 awards, induction being the highest honor, distinguished service citation being our oldest award. We have a great working relationship still with Northwood as a partner. For those of you up in the area of Midlands, you can still go visit the giant doors that welcome people into the hall within one of their education buildings now. So the Automotive Hall of Fame, I like to say we're structured in a 2-part mission. So part 1, we award within the automotive organization in the automotive sectors, and sectors in like the broadest sense of automotive. So manufacturing, supply base, aftermarket, dealerships, trucking, and you're going to see some of those stories on play here today in the exhibit. This exhibit is called Achievement. It is focused on the African-American innovation, invention, and leadership in automotive. This is a larger research initiative. So we were launched with the generous support of General Motors to explore, to curate an exhibition on African-American contribution into automotive. When we launched this effort, we of course reached out to some community members or some sister institutions, historians and authors, and we kind of quickly realized that this wasn't just a curatorial effort. This was actually a research initiative, that a lot of the original research maybe hadn't been done yet. So we started diving into that space. In addition, we put together a curatorial team to help us organize the first, what we're calling an episode in the exhibition. And you're going to meet some of the curatorial team in a moment. So the second part of our mission is education. So we look at engaging with educational programs, specifically focusing on careers. And again, you're going to see some great careers in the space as we go and walking through the exhibit. So I do want to not eat up too much time, but I want to get to our curators who are going to highlight some of the artifacts in space, some of the vehicles, 4 of which we have on display, and talk a little more about the people we're going to be focusing on. So first curator, as we considered, Ryan. We have Ryan Arnold here, and she's actually standing by an artifact that is representative of one of our inductees, actually 2 of our inductees. Thank you, sir.
So right here we have our C.R. Patterson buggy, created by C.R. Patterson. This is a 1910 style doctor's buggy. We acquired this buggy from Tom C. Smith from Greenfield, Ohio. He's a collector, and they were actually manufacturing them. So that's the one they're going to do. I can tell you a little bit about C.R. Patterson.
If we could speak a little louder, please, toward the microphone.
So C.R. Patterson was an early American innovator. He was the founder of the first African-American carriage and coach making company. And this is one of the styles of coach and carriages he would make. He was born in 1833. His story has been coming up a lot, but contrary to popular belief, he was not born enslaved. He actually came from a family of free African Americans. He moved to Greenfield, Ohio, around 1860s, prior to the Civil War, where he began his life. He worked his whole entire life as a blacksmith, carriage and coach maker. In 1873, he and J.P. Lowe, a white coach maker, joined, and they were partners, and they came up with the J.P. Lowe company. But later on in 1893, C.R. Patterson acquired that company and bought that company, and he named it the C.R. Son and Company. He and his son, his youngest son, Samuel Patterson, were the founders of this company. But unfortunately, Samuel fell ill and he passed away. So his C.R. Patterson had 5 children. His eldest son, Frederick Douglass, he has his own amazing story. Frederick Douglass Patterson, he was the first, well, he attended Ohio State University. He was the first African-American football player on the Ohio State University football team. And he also was elected class body president. So that was a major accomplishment for him as an African-American student. He went on to be a teacher, but once his brother passed away, he came back home to help his father with his company. So between 1893 and 1910, C.R. Patterson and Frederick Douglass Patterson designed and came up with like 28 different carriage styles, with, again, their doctor style being one of the most popular styles. Unfortunately, in 1910s, C.R. Patterson passed away. So Frederick Douglass Patterson, his eldest son, took over the company. He renamed this company to C.R. and Sons Company to pay homage to his younger brother Samuel, who passed away, but also to include his mark on taking over the company. Around, the early 1910s, Frederick Douglass Patterson decided that they needed to maybe evolved and started making horseless carriages. So he got into the automotive industry and he began to create automobiles. So Frederick Douglass Patterson was the first African automotive manufacturer. So around 1915 is when they made their first car, and it was comparable to like the Henry Ford Model T. It was a very popular car. Later on in his career, he went on to do repairs for automobiles as well as buses. And then he found a calling in creating bodies for buses. So that is what Frederick Douglass Patterson continued to do until 1939, in which the Pattersons and Sons Company just dissolved. But that was a lineage of 45 years of his father being the first African-American carriage and coach maker, passing it along to his son to become the first African-American automotive industry. On the back of the carriage as well, there's a small plaque that says Patterson and Sons, and it has Springfield, Ohio on there. So this is an authentic buggy. It has been restored, but again, it's 113 years old, so it's not going to be restored to its original condition, but we have some of this nice leather and this paint. The story is very fascinating. Again, that 45 years, so much has been accomplished within that 35 years, in that 2 generations. And C.R. Patterson, he was an inventor of all kinds. He held several patents, but this was one of his best creations and his most notable creations, creating these carriages. So now I can pass you on to Natalia, our other curator.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, wow, a crazy innovation with Patterson's, but kind of on highlighting achievements by African Americans. We have
Did we lose our web stream from the Automotive Hall of Fame? We seem to have lost our connection. We're going to try to restore that. While we work on that, I will let you know that our next Motor Cities on the Road session is scheduled for exactly 1 month from today. That will be Wednesday, March the 22nd. It will be a Women's History Month program. And that will be Wednesday, March 22nd at noon. Okay, can we unmute and start again?
Did you lose us?
Yeah, we lost it between the switch over to you. We lost the internet connection. So
Okay.
can you start with where you started, and
Yeah.
Please project for our audience.
Of course. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalia. Thanks for sending it over, Ryan. And on the theme of achievement and African Americans' achievement in the automotive industry, for this exhibit, we have several cars who are representative of the people we're highlighting. I'd like to demonstrate and share a little bit about the car we're seeing, a funny car we're seeing right in front of us, which is a 1971 custom Mustang funny car. This car is representative of the legacy of Nitro Nellie Goins, who is the first African-American funny car drag racer. And we can see Nitro Nellie's career starts in 1968 with her husband, Otis. They were just married. They both had a passion for drag racing. And so they start actually with a 1968 Plymouth Barracuda. And Otis, because of health concerns, could not actually race the car. So Nellie stepped up as the racer. And we have Otis running the pit crew with their kids and family along later on in time being part of the pit crew as well. I don't think the video can do justice of just how beautiful this car is. We have pink and blue lining with the yellow stripes. And their ultimate goal was to create a car that was nitro fueled. The 1968 Barracuda was actually fueled by alcohol injection. This is the car they had later on created in 1970 that is actually AA/FC nitro fueled, nitro blown, as they say. And when we look in the inside of the car, we can see where Nellie would be placed inside to race. And we also have the signatures of Nitro Nellie. And the other people who have worked on the car, notably Kenny Hirata and Lee Austin, both creating this custom fiberglass body, as well as a nitro fuel running car. And if we look at the back of the car, we have these giant wheels in the back, and that's why it gets its name. It's a funny car. But we also see a sticker for the 2014 East Coast Drag Racing Hall of Fame, which Nellie was honored in 2014, but she mostly has been an underground racing figure. So we are just honored to be able to have this car in the museum and to honor her and her legacy. She ran drag races up until 1975. She said her most notable miles per hour on this car was 214, which, you know, in the mid 70s is really impressive. If we move forward here, we can see the custom built nitro fuel exhaust. And we have also here another nitro fuel custom exhaust. And Nellie was featured in 1971 in Ebony magazine, and then again in Ebony Junior in 1973. But a lot of the research on her had not been done, but we are so lucky to have this car brought on by the owner, the current owner, Rick Lucas, who, when he came across this car, he had a passion for drag racing and nitro fueled car. He had no idea who Nitro Nellie was, but after doing some research and getting to know Nellie, he's been able to preserve the history and the stories with this car and restoring it to its mint condition. And Rick also is a family-run racing. He has his family as his pit crew. So I think he just really felt for the independent spirit that Nellie and Otis had with their car. And we're lucky to house it here at the museum for this exhibit onto the summer. And yeah, I'm telling you, the color is just so beautiful. It's really difficult to see the pink in photographs. So seeing it up front and seeing the first sponsors the car had in the 60s and 70s all around stickered, it's really beautiful. And just to clarify, we're honoring Nitro Nellie. We're not inducting her into the Hall of Fame. This exhibit is honoring a group of people that some of them haven't been inducted, others have been inducted. But I'll send it over to our president, Sarah, to share the details of how someone gets inducted into the Automotive Hall of Fame.
Thanks, Natalia. Yeah, we're really excited to have Nellie's car here. I think all the vehicles here will be on display until September. We actually get a chance to highlight Nellie further during our Women in Motorsports event in June. So this will be on display through June and into September. Like Natalia said, this is a little bit of a departure for us in exhibitry. We get to focus on the stories of individuals that have been awarded by the Hall and those that maybe haven't yet been awarded by the Hall. The Hall does have 5 different distinct awards, with induction being the highest. And really, it's a really great point to bring up. This was part of the impetus of the launch of this initiative, was what came from an assessment of the institution. So in 2018, the board ran a self-assessment and came up with some recommendations. One of the things that was assessed for the entirety of the institution was, what was our awardee composition? Notably, of our 297 inductees, the highest honor at the time, only 2 were African American. This really stood out in the assessment as something that didn't quite believe to be the truth of contribution or tell the whole story of contribution. So that was really the impetus and the launch of this project. The project was launched with full board support. We started doing a research investigation, some of the conversations I pointed to earlier, and then GM coming on board with the financial support to say they would really like to see this history both showcased in exhibitry and through programs, and also researched further. So this is episode 1 of what we fully expect to be many episodes. And this is actually the output, the initial output of the research initiative is this exhibitry. We do expect as we go through additional research for African-American contribution in automotive, we're going to come up with more exhibitry. We're going to have educational program support. We're going to put content online, which you'll actually start seeing to roll out in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to uncover awardees. This first episode launch really is kind of our start of a community collaboration process as well. So we're looking for widespread community feedback, including from this community, from MotorCities heritage, and what you see in the community, in your own communities, and in museums. Now, we only have 4 vehicles related to this museum on display. We are not a car museum. We do focus on the stories of the individuals, their contribution, and the careers that they've had. This building was purpose-built in 1997 to be the Automotive Hall of Fame. And oddly enough, didn't really take into account having cars in many spaces in the hall. So that the Goins car is what, 13 feet long, Kathleen?
Yeah, a little longer than that.
You can see it's in the gallery. Again, we're putting up the exhibitry now. It's not quite set up, but we're going to walk you into the main exhibit space. Come on. And we're actually going to walk the path that vehicle came in through. And it was a feat. Now you can see the Patterson buggy, no problem. We could basically roll that in the front door. Maybe not quite. But any of these larger vehicles are going to follow us and take the sharp turn now into the hall.
So it was a little difficult. This is in fact the path that the Nitro Nelly car and the Patterson buggy both traveled to arrive in the front of our building. We've got some tight turns in here. I think for the Nelly car, for the Nitro Nelly car, about a 38-point turn, you think?
I think
It was a little difficult to get it to make the swing here. We tried several times, even with clamps on the wheels to facilitate the movement. We're going to walk out into the atrium where most of the exhibit is placed. And you can see there's still some construction going on. We're not all the way there yet. What I'd like to do is walk you on over to the third vehicle that we're showcasing.
Before you get too far, Kathleen, I'd like to introduce you.
Yeah, I was going to mention that we don't know who our second speaker is right now.
Kathleen is our VP of Operations and Programs, and she's done the entirety of the project management for this exhibition, from community partnerships, hiring our curators, liaising with all our other partners. And there's many facets to this exhibit that Kathleen can walk through.
So why don't we come on in and let's continue. One of the things that Sarah just pointed out is that we want to tell the stories of these individuals. We have artifacts here to support that. One artifact that we have is the Studebaker here that we see on this clip. This is a Studebaker that we have here to represent Ed Davis. Ed Davis was the very first African-American car dealer. He was interested in sales. He had the right personality and tenacity for it, and was searching for an opportunity to work in sales. He finally was hired by a dealership as their first African-American salesperson. Due to discrimination, he wasn't allowed to sit on the sales floor with the other salespeople. Instead, he was set up in a supply room. So he told his customers that he had a private office, and he would invite them to his private office where he would be able to close the sale. He was wildly successful. In fact, he was so successful that Studebaker took note of him. They were having a hard time achieving the sales volume they wanted in the Detroit area. And they approached him, Ed Davis, to become one of their dealers, not the other way around. So Ed happily signed the agreement with Studebaker and opened his first dealership. That happened in 1940. And this is an example of the sort of vehicle that he would have had on his showroom floor. This is a 1940 Studebaker Champion Coupe. It is in the traditional red with the red sidewalls on the hubcaps. This is a two-door coupe with the interior true to how it would have appeared in 1940. And it's actually in beautiful condition. This is the sort of vehicle that he would have been selling at that time. He was actually very successful for Studebaker up until Studebaker's demise. They weren't able to survive the competition. as well as some of the things that came as a fallout of World War II. So after Studebaker closed, Ed Davis did go on to represent Chrysler Plymouth for the second dealership. And when he finally retired, he worked for the city of Detroit. This is just one of the artifacts that we have here. One of our ambitions with this exhibit is to tell these stories, but not to tell the stories in our words, to let the people who we're featuring tell the stories in their own way, in their own words. And so this has resulted in an enormous amount of support and output from the community, and especially from the people who we featured. They've been wildly supportive in terms of delivering artifacts and helping us to tell the stories the way they want to. If we come on over here, we see, for instance, a football helmet and a football signed by Terry Bradshaw. This is representing Randy Parker. Now, what does the football and Steelers equipment have to do with the Automotive Hall of Fame? It's because that's the way that Randy Parker tells his story. He was born in Germany. His father was in the military. And when they moved back to the United States, he was about 7 years old. And he didn't look like everybody else in the place where they landed, which was Texas. He didn't sound like everybody else. His interests weren't quite the same as everybody else's. And he made a choice. He made a choice to lean into his passions, including the Steelers, and not to try and change and be like everybody else in his environment. And it served him incredibly well. You can read about his story here or when the online exhibit opens. The other thing that you see in terms of telling the stories are the cases. Now, right now, we haven't put the top on this particular case, and we've got tops starting to go on right now. There will be tops to these cases. They'll be locked so that the artifacts are protected. We can still see them and observe them. But part of telling the stories is telling the stories in a way that keeps them safe, telling the stories in a way that elevates them so that we can understand the efforts, the perseverance that these individuals have undertaken. For us, for this museum, it's very new to be building new exhibitry. And so we're a very small organization. We don't have a lot of space. We've tried to create plinths and cases that are flexible, that can be reused for other purposes, but that also do a wonderful job of showcasing the artifacts that have been donated to us or the artifacts that we've acquired to tell the stories on behalf of other featured individuals. These are artifacts that we did acquire for the museum. We own them now, that tell the story of Victor and Alma Green, the authors of the Green Book. And they created a publication that made it safe for people to travel, African Americans to travel throughout the United States during the era of Jim Crow laws, when it really wasn't particularly safe. And so we can start to understand how African Americans had to prepare for those kinds of trips. The vehicles are on new plinths. These are new to us. For you, a plinth may not be the most exciting thing, but for us, these plinths move, so we can move them around the museum and have a lot of flexibility with them at our ease. I have to say, Sarah said that I had done a lot of the work and worked with our partners, but really it's our partners and our team that make this come to life. We have had wonderful partners in terms of reliable carriers who delivered all of the vehicles for us. MotorCities has been a fabulous partner in terms of video elements, which we're not going to show today in this webcast. We've been working with Lucy Creative, who's just been a fabulous partner in terms of building all of the exhibitry. And we've been working with History Associates, who have helped us do some of the research and develop some of the bios for the people who have been featured in this particular episode. And it's been a big effort by our own team as well. I have to commend our president, Sarah Cook, for the outreach to General Motors to have the vision of this and to write the proposal. Our sponsors, General Motors, Lear, and American Axle, for funding this to make it possible. And our own team, our collections manager and our archivist, to set up original processes so that we can bring in these artifacts and make sure that we're keeping them safe. Our curators who you've just met, really, they've only been here a little over 2 months, and yet they've done an enormous amount of job in terms of curating this entire exhibit. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention our own historian and resident, Robert Tate. Bob Tate joined our team and has helped with a lot of the research that's required. Now, I'm not going to date you, Bob, but I think that we've been studying automotive history for at least 40 years.
Yes, 40 plus.
So we can rely on not just his scholarship, but just his own memory and living and watching these stories unfold. And I do want to mention the exhibit's going to open on Saturday, the 25th. It's a free day, so you can come to the exhibit, see this, or the museum, see this exhibit, and see all of our exhibits at no charge. And at 1 p.m., Bob's going to be telling some of his stories that he's acquired over the last 40 or so years about many of these individuals. Why don't you tell us about this vehicle you're standing by right now?
Okay, my name is Bob Tate, and I was asked to get involved with this historical one regarding automotive history and African Americans. And I felt it was a good idea because this is a story that should be told. And I am enthusiastic about it because it highlights individuals who has gone before us, who has contributed to the auto industry or the truck industry that have never been talked about or mentioned before, or have not been illustrated in any type of history books. So for me, it's an honor to be here and to work with this exhibit. But I would like to highlight one of the individuals. I'm standing next to the Bronco truck that was introduced by Ford in 1966. This truck was designed by the late Mr. McKinley Thompson Jr., who was the first African-American to be hired by a car company as an auto truck designer. Mr. McKinley was inspired by the Chrysler Airflow when he was a young kid. He was born in November 8th, 1922. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but I had the opportunity to sit down with him and to get his story of what he has contributed over the years and how he has put many of the cars and trucks that consumers purchased in the 1960s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And his story was just overwhelming. This truck is a part of history because it sold very well with Ford Motor Company back in the 1960s. And it highlighted an era of truck enthusiasts as well as truck owners. And Mr. McKinley designed the truck, and also today it has been revived by Chris Young, who's also an African-American designer who brought back the Bronco that many people and consumers drive today. So the truck is a very unique design. I believe the color is antique white, and it is a very, very nice looking truck. Mr. McKinley was hired by Ford in 1956 by Alex Trimless, who was the designer for the Tucker. And he told me that in his interview that he first started off designing tractors for Ford Motor Company in 1956. That went on to go into show cars like the show car, the Gyron, and so forth. And then he did other vehicles that were very popular, the 64, the 65 Ford Thunderbird, the 67, 68 Ford Thunderbird, the Cougar 2 show car that came out in 1966. So he had a wealth of talent and information that he provided for consumers and people for over decades of design and design. He went very far at Ford, and he contributed and he put many vehicles on the road. In my humble interview that I had with him, I was intrigued with his recall of the auto industry and how he could get names and places and thoughts and ideas of what he designed. But most importantly, he can talk about vehicles, because we talked about certain vehicles. He would tell me, oh, I didn't that design work. That was already done when I got there or whatever. So I learned a lot from him. And it was one of the most memorable interviews that I had conducted. I believe it was in the 1980s. It was a situation where, for me, because I lost my father when I was 3 years old, and just for the moments in time that I spent with him, he had filled the shoes of my father as I sat there and I interviewed him for his acknowledgments and the things, the designs that he had contributed to the auto industry. I also want to mention too that I was the first writer, and it's no big secret that I write stories for the Motor Cities story program every week, which I'm honored to do so. But I was the first writer to write a story on McKinley Thompson a few years back. And after that, I began to see more and more writers write on this remarkable and historic man. So this is one exhibit. I think it's going to be historic. And I think it will be an honor for many, many generations and cultures, not just African Americans, but for everyone to see the bright light and the footprints that many of the African Americans have contributed over the years.
And I will also add, Bob, before you depart, people can read more about a number of the subjects in this exhibit at the Automotive Hall of Fame by looking at our Story of the Week archive at MotorCities.org. We know we have great stories on C.R. Patterson and Nitro Nelly and Ed Davis and his life selling cars. And those are all accessible in our Story of the Week archives at MotorCities.org. Thank you, Bob.
And
Thank you.
I'd add to that also, Bob, the Making Tracks series that Motor Cities has done.
Absolutely. The Making Tracks portion of our website, which is accessible at motorcities.org. Just look at the top navigation bar and click on Making Tracks.
Okay. We're gonna hop into our laptop and we'll be available for questions. So we're just gonna wander back and we'll see you in a minute.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah and Kathleen. And we're going to start our question and answer period. I would remind everyone, you can write any questions that you have on the Q&A section of the Zoom navigation bar at the bottom of your screen. And we'll answer as many of those questions as we can over the rest of the hour that we have to work together. So we have a couple new faces that have, well, the faces that we saw earlier have moved into the conference room, I believe. So if you guys want to reintroduce yourselves and unmute, and we'll have a little Q&A session with everyone.
So I'm Ryan Arnold. I'm one of the junior curators here at the Automotive Hall of Fame.
Hello, I'm Natalia Rocafuerte, and I'm also a junior curator at the Automotive Hall of Fame.
I'm Kathleen, I'm back. Sarah's here too.
Okay.
Hey, you know who I am.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let me address the question. How was this team assembled? It's a great diverse team that really represents a lot of different diversity and reflects the automotive industry. So how did this team come together?
I think a lot of credit needs to go to Sarah Cook for assembling this team. We're and a lot of fortunate, I think, a lot of good luck.
A lot of luck and interest. Did you well, part of the grant that we received from General Motors, we made the plea. We said, you know, at the time, I think we had 6 people maybe on staff. And we just said, none of us are the people that are going to make this exhibit. We don't have the knowledge base. We don't have the areas that we've studied. We don't have the firsthand lived experience as white people. So we knew that there were voices missing on the team. And General Motor, and we said, and we need, you know, we need funding and support to hire that talent on. And General Motors, they agreed. And so they gave us that seed funding that allowed us to expand our staff to go out and search, you know, and a lot of it is, this has been a practice for the full board and the staff on being really intentional and not going to our own networks and being really aware of any biases we have, or trying to be anyway. And so that, you know, reaching out and trying to get as broadly as we could out into a community and and intentionally saying, we're not going to know the people, and we're not going to know people that know the people that know the people that will be part of this team. So we had to be very open.
I see. So once the team came together, what were some of the challenges in assembling the stories, collecting the artifacts? I've got to believe that there were some challenges in terms of putting all the stories together, putting the puzzle of the narrative together to come to the final product.
We had one remarkable challenge. I'll let Kathleen and the team speak to the rest of the challenges, maybe more specifically, but we do have a member of this team that joined earlier last year, that had a very unexpected illness, and so fell off of, had to go take care of themselves and had to fall off the team for the time being. And so that was a marked challenge. You know, we're a nonprofit institution. We don't have too much duplicative jobs here. We have one person working on one thing. So having any one team member face such a serious challenge and need to refocus elsewhere in their life, that can be really very hard.
Yeah, it was a big loss. We had a curator, a PhD, who we're hoping will come back and join us when she's well. But that was something that was obviously unexpected. We were in the very early stages of planning this project when she fell ill, and the illness creeped up a little bit, so we lost some time. So we had to move very, very quickly then in order to be able to deliver the project. And I'd say that was really the genesis time was really the single biggest challenge for us. I have to be completely honest, Bob, we've had remarkably good luck, fate. I'm obviously wearing a cross with ashes on my forehead. We've been blessed. After that happened, we ran an RFQ to find an exhibit design and construction partner, and Lucy Creative came through. They asked us what our budget was, and they said, we won't do what we normally do, but we'll do what we can inside of your budget and inside of your timeline. We knew that we needed to bring on some additional staff prior to this other person falling ill. We'd asked Bob Tate to join us on a part-time basis, and he came forward. And honestly, his extensive knowledge of automotive history really facilitated a lot of the research requirements. If he didn't know the facts off the top of his head, he was able to tell us where to look. He could put us in contact with other individuals who he had personal relationships with, be able to secure some additional information. Our development team and alumni relations team reached out very quickly to ask the different individuals if they'd be willing to participate in this effort. MotorCities jumped in. You guys got a couple of oral histories done really, really quickly to add to your own inventory, but also so that it would add to the videos that we can tell here. So like getting the video done with John James. These two young ladies sitting in front of me, honest to goodness, we offered them a job on Friday and they both said, hey, you guys are kind of under the gun. You want me to start on Monday? And so I can't think, I can count on two fingers the number of times that's happened, that somebody said, I'll start Monday because it's clear that this is important and you need some help. Everything, we've been so fortunate with the way the pieces have come together.
I don't know, Natalia and Ryan, like you've dealt a lot with the individuals and having to go into private collections and work on gathering objects. I don't know if you've met challenges.
Right, I absolutely, I can start with Nitro Nelly's car was a surprise that kind of came to us. And yeah, I think the only article that I could find on her was the one written by Bob. So she lives a very private life. So it was very difficult to try to see where she was at and acquire objects to have her represented in this exhibit. But luckily, I was watching a video of the car at an exhibition, and painted on the car once the fiberglass is lifted from the actual body of the car.
is that I happened to freeze frame that video and see that there was an owner named Rick Lucas out of Florida. So, I sleuthed on the internet and found him online, and sure enough, he had built this beautiful website for the car and had done a history with Nellie, trying to understand the history of the car and how she got into racing. So having a collector like that who's so invested in the history, and it was just finding the right person and connecting with him, but all kind of the seed of it all is Bob's article on Nitro Nelly. And once I talked to Rick, he had mentioned how Nelly had read Bob's article and how much she loved it. And once I spoke with Bob, he mentioned how she had reached out to MotorCities. So it felt serendipitous, but it was just being the person to connect all these lines together has been an honor. And yeah, Ryan's had her own stories.
Yeah, I had, very similar to Natalia. These 19 individuals are amazing, but one of my favorite was the late race car driver, Charlie Wiggins. And he passed away in the 70s. So it was a bit hard to find artifacts for him, but we did some digging and we ended up finding something like last minute. So that was pretty awesome. But I think that's probably the only challenge I had, is just finding artifacts or something to represent these people who are no longer here, or we are not in contact with their families, so that we can properly honor these people. So just doing that digging in curatorial work and working with this team and their support, and we were able to do it.
I'm gonna answer a question you didn't ask, Bob. I hope that's okay.
Hey, go ahead.
One of the things that's important to, I think, our whole team here is capturing these stories before they're lost. So the Charlie Wiggins story, the Nitro Nelly, these are stories of MotorCities and Bob Tate. You guys are the ones who started bringing those stories forward. There are other stories out there that we don't know yet. And this is part of the reason that we're doing this. Sarah said this is the first episode in a series of episodes of exhibits that we expect to have that tell these stories. And Sarah also mentioned that a big part of this is community outreach and feedback, so that we can engage in a collaborative process, because we know there are other stories out there, and it's really important to us that we capture them before they're lost in time.
Absolutely. I understand that completely. That's certainly, a big part of our mission as the MotorCities National Heritage Area. And so as we come close to wrapping up here, can you remind us again of the details of the opening weekend, and rehash where you're located and where people can get more information about the Automotive Hall of Fame?
So we're opening on Saturday, February 25th. The doors open at 10 a.m. We'll be open until 4 p.m. At 1 p.m., Bob Tate will be giving a talk. He'll be giving some more inside information on others of these featured individuals based on his knowledge and research. And you can join us at 21400 Oakwood Boulevard, 21400 Oakwood Boulevard. We're in Dearborn. And if you get confused, you can call us. We're at 313-240-4000.
Outstanding. Thanks so much for all your time. And we look forward to not only this exhibit opening this weekend, as well as the upcoming phases of the project. And certainly you're telling great stories that need to be told. And I would like to thank all of you for joining us, and Bob Tate, just off camera. Thanks again. And, we do have Bob Tate's weekly stories of the week are featured in our weekly e-newsletter, which is entitled You Ought to Know. Yes, pun intended. And people can sign up to get that newsletter every Wednesday in their email inbox at motorcities.org. If you just scroll down to the bottom of our homepage, there is an email sign up right there, and you can get that newsletter and get that story of the week every week. And also a lot of other great information from MotorCities about events taking place around the 16 counties of our National Heritage Area. And so again, I remind everyone of our next program, which is coming up this same time next month. We will be joining you again on March 22nd. That's Wednesday, March 22nd. And that'll be featuring women's history. Women's History Month is March, and so we will be having a great program for Women's History Month. We'll get those details. Watch our website and the Motor Cities on the Road page for those details. And we'll also be trumpeting it via our social media and along the You Ought to Know weekly e-newsletter. So thanks again, everyone at the Automotive Hall of Fame for joining us. We wish you great success with this exhibit. And thank you, everyone who joined us today. And we will talk to you again next month. Have a great Don't Slip on the Ice Wednesday.
Thanks,
Thank
Bob.
you.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Bob.
Bob.